Oh, somebody's here.
Hey, hi everybody.
I think he sees you. What do you think? Okay, are we ready? Okay, hands down. Hands down.
That mic by the speakers here? Ask Dr. McKay to say like the American Gettysburg Address or something.
No, that's we want it. Ask him. Hear us. Ask him.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can, loud and clear.
Hi, Dr. McKay. My name is Mia. We would like to thank you for spending your time with us today. We're excited to have the great and rare opportunity to ask you some questions.
I'm happy to talk with you.
As you know, not everyone gets to ask questions. We have 1st through 5th grade students with inquiries.
Great.
I would like to I would like to lead the questions myself, but what everyone here is thinking about, wondering, and where are you and what were you doing before we interrupted you?
Well, I'm in my office, I'm just working, and it really wasn't an interruption. I'm happy to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
What are your questions?
What's your question?
Where are you? Where are you and what were you doing before we interrupted you?
Okay, I'm in California. I'm at NASA at the Ames Research Center, which is just south of San Francisco. And that's where my office is. And what I do most of the day is work on results that are coming from Mars or from field projects that we're involved in. So I was working, but it really wasn't an interruption because I was expecting you guys. So it's not an interruption when you expect somebody to knock on the door, so to speak, even if it's just electronic. So I'm happy to see you all and to talk to you all. Thanks, Mia. Who's going to read the next question?
So my name is, thank you for my name is Chris, and I would like to say thank you for having us in this live talk. So my question is, how do we know the rocks we have found are from Mars?
That's a really good question, Chris. And by the way, I like your name. It's the same as mine. We have a bunch of rocks on Earth, meteorites, that we know come from outer space. Some of them come from the moon, some of them come from asteroids, and now we know that some of them come from Mars. And it was very hard to really be sure that they came from Mars. But the most convincing evidence was that in these Mars rocks, there's little bubbles of gas that have the same composition as the Mars air. And that composition is very different than Earth air. And of course the moon doesn't have any air, and neither do asteroids. And so it was very clear evidence that those rocks came from Mars because they had Mars nutrients. So that's how we know that these so-called Mars meteorites really came from Mars.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Quickly, go straight ahead. Go.
Hello, Dr. McKay. My name is Andrew, and I would like to ask you, if we were to bring the bacteria that we have left behind on Mars back to Earth, would the bacteria be changed from being on Mars for so long?
That's a really good question.
If bacteria is brought back to Earth from Mars, would it be different?
Yeah. That's a really good question. We don't know the answer. We don't know the answer. So we're guessing what it might be. When we take bacteria up into space and bring them back to Earth, they do something different. And so it may be that the bacteria carried to Mars They're not doing anything. They're asleep. And they've been asleep on Mars for 20 years. If you carry them back to Earth and then revive them, we don't know if they'd be different or not. And in fact, I think that would be a good experiment to do. When we eventually do go to Mars, we could go to an old spacecraft, like, for example, Sojourner, which landed on Mars in 1997, and bring it back to Earth and revive those bacteria and see if they're any different. So that's a good question. We don't know the answer. My guess, my hypothesis, would be that there would be a difference, that the radiation on Mars and the radiation will have altered bacteria. But that hypothesis would need to be tested by actually doing the experiment. So when you go to Mars, Andrew, you can bring back the sample and do that experiment.
Say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, Dr. McKay, and thank you for doing the live chat. And my question is, why do you think we kids our age should go to Mars?
Why do kids your age, why should they go to Mars? You go to Mars.
Right. Well, I think NASA will send elementary schools to Mars. But by the time you go to Mars, you'll be an adult. So you may go to Mars, not now when you're in elementary school, but in 20 years after you graduated college. So yes, you may go to Mars, but we won't send kids probably. We'll send adults. Did that answer your question?
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you for. My name is Emma.
Go ahead and read the questions.
My question is it difficult to work in extreme environments?
Emma's question is it difficult to explore in extreme environments? Okay?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's a question that I face all the time because a lot of my research is in extreme environments. We do research in deserts, in the driest deserts on Earth. We also do research in the Antarctic, the polar regions, high on mountains. And these environments can be very extreme, and indeed, it's difficult to do work there. It's difficult because it can be very cold, it can be very windy, and so it is, but it's worth it. It's worth it because places are certain. They're very interesting, and although it's difficult, it's not dangerous. We're very careful to make sure that we are always safe, that we always have things well planned out. So it's difficult, but it's not dangerous, and it's very interesting. Thanks for that question.
Thank you.
I see ya.
My name is Aubrey. Thank you for being here today, Dr. McKay. My question is, are we as people not ready to be looking for the answer? Is there life on other planets? We can't even clone our own life or take care of it.
Okay, her question was, are we as people not ready to be looking for an answer for, is there life on other planets? When we can't even clone our own life here or take care of ourselves here.
That's a very deep question, and it's very insightful. And I think it's often the case that by searching for life elsewhere, we will in fact better understand and better appreciate life on Earth, and we won't take it for granted. So in fact, I would assume that searching for life on Mars and seeing how tough conditions for life on Mars are and how lifeless the moon is, will give us a chance to reflect on life on Earth and, in fact, take better care of it. So I guess the answer to the question is I don't see the search for life on Mars and taking care of life on Earth as being opposed. They can both work together. So that would be the direction I would want to go. So thanks for that question.
Thank you. Hello, Dr. McKay. My name is Abigail, and my question is, do you know if there are earthquakes on Mars?
Your question is, do you know if there are earthquakes on Mars?
That question, in fact, is very timely, Abigail, because there's a mission being built right now by NASA called InSight, which will go to Mars and for the first time search for Mars quakes. We don't call them earthquakes when they're on Mars, we call them Mars quakes. But we don't have anything so far. We expect that there will be Mars quakes. Mars has volcanoes, it's got tectonic rifts and other geological features, so it should have quakes. So we should see them, and the first mission that will be able to detect them will launch Mars next year. So watch for those results. Maybe in about 2 years from now, you will see in the newspaper the first reports of Mars quakes.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. McKay. My name is Venus, and my question is, why do people want to go to Mars to try to discover life, but not focus on other planets like Venus?
So why do people want to go to Mars and try to discover life, but not focus on other planets like Venus?
Right, so her name is Venus. I think we should focus on Venus too. There are some folks who think that there might be life in clouds of Venus. But the case for life on Mars is we have good evidence that early in its history, Mars was very much like the Earth. And it's that similarity between Earth and Mars that is why Mars is so interesting. Now, Venus may have had an Earth-like area. We don't know. Unfortunately, because Venus is so hot, all the evidence of this early history is destroyed. So if Venus had an Earth-like period, we don't know if it did or didn't. Whereas on Mars, we can see clear evidence of dried riverbeds and old oceans, which indicate that at one time it was Earth-like. And that's why everyone wants to go to Mars.
Thank you for your wonderful answer.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Coven, and my question is, if they find a microbe on Mars, what will they do with it, and how will they bring it back to Earth?
So he's asking, if you find a microbe on Mars, what will you do with it, and how will you bring it back?
Well, if we find a microbe on Mars, we will not bring it back because we would be worried that if we brought it back to Earth, it could contaminate the Earth. So it's very risky to bring life from one place to another. And a good example is rabbits in Australia. Rabbits were brought to Australia, they spread everywhere, creating havoc with the natural ecosystem. So you can imagine, and rabbits, you don't think of rabbits as being very dangerous. Not that the rabbits are dangerous, it's just that there's so many of them. So you can imagine that if we brought a bacteria from Mars to Earth, it could create problems on Earth. We would not bring it back to Earth. You would study it on Mars. And what I would like to do is find out what kind of DNA it has, if it even has DNA, and compare it to DNA on Earth. So on Earth, all life forms share common DNA. And the first question I want to know is, does this Mars organism share that common DNA also, or does it have a different type of DNA, or even something different than DNA?
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome, Paul.
Bye.
Hello, Dr. McKay. My name is Avery, and my question is, how can I become a scientist at NASA?
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is study science and math if you want to become a scientist. And then when you get to college and graduate school, NASA has a lot of internships where you can spend the summer at NASA. That's what I did when I was in college. I came to NASA Ames for a summer when I was in school. And then after I graduated, NASA has a program for people with a PhD to apply for postdocs. And I applied for a postdoc, and then I came here for 2 years on a postdoc, and then I stayed on, and now I work as a scientist here. My PhD was in physics. My undergraduate degree and my PhD was in physics. And once I came to NASA, I got more and more interested in astrobiology. So I do a mix of that. But any NASA scientist can have a background in many different fields: geology, biology, physics, atmospheric science. So you could have many different types of specialization. But to be a NASA scientist, you have to go through school and effectively get a PhD, and then be sure to apply for a summer internship. Those are very valuable. This summer, in a month, I will have 5 students coming to Ames to work with me, 5 college students. So I'm a big supporter of summer internships. So mark that on your calendar, not now when you're in elementary school, but when you get to college and graduate, apply to the semester.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Emma, and I would like to ask you a question. How did cyanobacteria get into rocks in these dry places in the first place? Are there other microbes in there too?
So how did cyanobacteria get into rocks in these dry climates in the first place? Are there other microbes in there too?
Right, that's a really good question, Emma, and I wish I knew the answer. This is a question that myself and Dr. Henry Sun, a desert research in Las Vegas, are interested in trying to discover. How do these cyanobacteria get inside the porous rock? So, as you may know, in Antarctica, we find sandstone, porous sandstone, and we find inside the sandstone layers of cyanobacteria living inside the sandstone. And they must be getting in the little tiny spaces. But we're not sure exactly how they get. Now, to your second question, are there other organisms? Yes, not just cyanobacteria. The whole system. There's 10, 20 different types of bacteria, cyanobacteria, and also fungus living all together in it. But how they colonize, how the first one came in, we don't really know. And what I'm thinking that we should try doing is some experiments where we take a stone and we sterilize it, and we see how long it takes for something to start growing in. But we haven't done that experiment. It's actually something we're thinking about trying to figure out. So it's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel. Oh, hello, Dr. McKay.
My name is Daniel. I'm from the 5th grade. And my question is, what would happen to the underground lakes and possibly microscopic life on Mars if they were exposed to the Martian environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. We think that in fact that happened billions of years ago on Mars. That the lakes, like the ones we study, were effectively dried out. And that's the answer to your question. What happened to the lakes on Mars like they would dry out and they would leave behind crust, residuals, the salt, sort of like salt flat. Drive east of Reno for a few hours, you reach some dried salt flats, dry lake bed. That's the result of the lake drying out. Giant lake called Planetary dried out and left behind the salt flats. So the same thing might happen on Mars, and then of course any life in the lake would get trapped in that salt. So one of the things we'd like to do on Mars is find these dry lake beds and study them and prove that there is indeed evidence of past life inside these dry crusts. Where you live, you know, you're not far from this phenomenon. There's a lot of dry lakes in the basin and range Providence. You can see them drying out in I-80, going down 50, Highway 50, you can see these dry lakes. And they are exactly what we'd expect on Mars if the lakes were exposed to the surface.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mom.
Hello, my name is Rochelle. Thank you for having us today. My question is, can there be other living things in an asteroid?
Can there be life on it?
Can there be life on asteroids?
Can there be life on an asteroid?
Can there be life on it? And that's, if you had asked me that, you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I just said, no, not very likely. But now I'm changing my mind because we're getting new data from the asteroid. We have seen the data coming out from a spacecraft that is visiting the largest asteroid series. And it looks like it's water and ice on it, and it looks like it's active. So asteroids are becoming much more interesting in terms of the possibility of life. So we may send more missions, NASA may send more missions to asteroids. But it's a good question, and it's something that's actually current right now as we learn more about the asteroids with these new missions. The mission is called Dawn. If you haven't seen the results, Google like Dawn at Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. Ceres is the largest of the asteroids.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Chris McKay. Hi, I'm Isaac, and I'm in the 5th grade. Right now, we travel to space in a rocket. Do you think that'll change? If so, how? How might we get all our stuff if we decide to move to Mars?
Right. I love that question, Isaac, because rockets are really slow. You think of them as fast, and they are fast as cars and airplanes, but they're really slow in terms of getting to Mars. To go in a rocket to Mars, right now, it would take 6 months. That's really a long time to spend sitting in your seat with your seatbelt on, right? So I think we need to come up with a different way of getting to Mars. Rockets aren't really going to do it. I want one ride, something like that. I want to get there in about an hour, not in 6 months. But we don't know how to do that. Right now, rockets are all we've got. We need to invent some new kind of space technology. People have some ideas, but nothing is developed yet. So for now, it's rockets. Hopefully, someday we'll have something better. Rockets are not very efficient. And the fundamental reason rockets are not efficient, fast, is because they carry their fuel with them. So you've got to accelerate the payload, you've got to accelerate all the fuel too. So that's the fundamental problem with rockets. And if when you get into college and you study calculus, look up the rocket equation. and you'll see why it's so frustrating. So look forward to studying calculus. It's a fascinating subject, and you'll be able to then mathematically understand why rockets are limiting by studying the so-called rocket equation.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bailey, and my question is, how might the flooding in Atacama affect your research?
How might the flooding in Atacama affect his research?
Yeah, that's a very timely question because flooding just occurred about 3 weeks ago. And we are sending a team down to the Atacama next week. And so it hasn't changed our research. We are going to look to see if there's any activity in this desert that resulted from that flooding. Because it only floods in the Atacama about once every 20 years. So this is a rare event. So we will go down and look to see if there's any effect of this rare event. So it's indeed, it has affected our plans, and for us this is an interesting opportunity. So that's interesting that you've been tracking the news and know that the driest place on Earth, the Atacama Desert, had flood a few weeks ago.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. McKay. My name is May, and I wanted to ask you, do you think that microbes can live in a black hole for a long period of time?
Live in a black hole for a long time.
Well, according to general relativity, when you move into a black hole, you don't feel anything. You're just following space-time, and it just feels perfectly normal. So if the bacteria is in something that can keep it alive, like say a bottle with nutrients and water, suppose you had a little jar and had water and nutrients, sugar, and all the things bacteria needed to live, and it was floating in space, and the bacteria were half in the jar, and the jar floated into a black hole. The bacteria wouldn't know that there was a black hole. They would continue to live and continue to be fine until they got so close in that the tidal forces tore it apart. But being in the black hole, the gravity and the event horizon per se, they wouldn't know about that. So there's nothing specific to bacteria. Also, you would just be the same if you were in a spacesuit with your buddies flying into a black hole. It's not like hitting the wall. You would just keep going and nothing until without feeling it until the tidal would be the most dangerous. So don't go to the black hole anytime. You can continue to think about it.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. McKay, and thank you for being a great scientist. My name is Camilla, and my question is, how can you tell that Cyanobacteria is one of the oldest living things on Earth?
How can you tell that Cyanobacteria is one of the oldest living things on Earth?
Yeah, that's the way we do relative age of organisms is by looking at genetic relationships. It's essentially a way of determining a family. And so we see that the cyanobacteria are very primitive because they have many of the genes that are at the base of the family tree. So that's why we're very old. And the other reason we think they're very old is because we see evidence that the oxygen that they made occurred very early. So there's two bits of evidence that suggest that cyanobacteria are very old. fact that oxygen occurred very early on Earth, and they are the ones that made it. And two, that their genetics indicates that they are primitive. They're more like the common ancestor than other organisms. It indicates that they are primitive and early on the genetic tree. That's a pretty hard question. It's the kind of question that you do on an exam when you're in college. So it's a difficult question. Thinking that way.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Daniel, and here's my question. I don't think we should change Mars, and it's just a beautiful place just like it is right now. What do you think?
So the question was, I don't think we should change Mars because it's a beautiful place, just like it is. What do you think?
I agree with you, Daniel, that Mars is a beautiful place. And there is a debate between whether we should change it or leave it alone. And it's not a scientific question, it's really a question about values. And to me, the alternative is Mars today, a beautiful place, and Mars with life, also a beautiful place, but with different because it has life. And so the question really comes down to what do we think about life? Really not so much a question about Mars, in my view, it's a question about life. So I think life on Mars is a more intrinsically valuable than just a beautiful Mars. But I appreciate that this is an opinion. It is not a scientific question. It's a question of what we do and what we value. Do we value life more than beauty? And personally, for myself, having studied life, studied the absence of life on other planets, I think that life is the most amazing thing in the universe, and that we should spread it. We should take it everywhere we can. So if Mars is a planet that's suitable for life, then I would say we should find life there, encourage it, or if there's no life there, we should take life. That's my personal opinion based on my sense of values from studying life.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. McKay. My name is Aurelie, and my question is, why doesn't NASA sanitize their rovers anymore?
Why doesn't NASA sanitize their rovers anymore?
Right. NASA tried to sterilize, or NASA did sterilize as best it could, the Viking mission. But after Viking, NASA and all the other space agencies, not just NASA, stopped sterilizing the spacecraft. Spacecraft aren't. And the reason is because we learned on Viking that nothing can grow on the surface of Mars. So any bacteria that were inside the spacecraft or on the surface would either die from being exposed to the UV light or would just normal. So in a way, we haven't contaminated Mars, even though we produce life from Earth on Mars inside the spacecraft. But it's not growing, it's not reproducing, and eventually it will die from accumulated cosmic rays. So if we were to just stop sending things to Mars and not do anything on Mars, eventually everything will be dead. But this is a problem if we imagine Mars in the future. Let's suppose 100 years from now, say 100 years from now, we decide we're going to warm Mars up. So then these organisms that are dormant inside the spacecraft will start growing in this warm, wet Mars. Then they will really be contamination. So this is an important question. What do we do about organisms that we think are already? And my own answer to that question is we would have to collect them and take them off the planet if we were to decide to warm up Mars. So it's an interesting dilemma. We have sent life to Mars. There is Earth life there. It's right now a problem, but it could cause a problem in the future, depending on what we decide on what to do on Mars. So it's something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up today. My name is Jose. My question is, what do you hope to find from all your research?
What do you want to learn from all the research you're doing?
Right. That's a question of motivation. Okay. What interests me most, the question I would like to answer the most, the question that's is question about life. Is there another example of life anywhere in the universe? When we look at life on Earth, there's only one example of life. Everything on Earth that's alive is the same, chemically and genetically. We only have one type of life. We can call it life as we know it. The question that interests me is, can we find a second type of life anywhere in the universe? Mars, Europa, another star system. Is there more than one type of life? And I call that a second genesis. So to say exactly what interests me is to search for a second genesis.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ed, and my question is, how do rocks go to Mars from Earth?
How did rocks go from Mars to Earth?
Okay, that's a good question. Now we know that rocks come to Earth from Mars. We have on Earth that came from Mars. In fact, in the lobby of my building at NASA, there's a display of a rock that came from Mars. So that we know as a fact. We know the rocks get knocked off Mars, fly through space, and land on Earth. Now, we don't know for a fact that it goes the other way. We think that it goes the other way. We hypothesize that it goes the other way, but we don't know. We don't have any data that shows that rocks from Earth go to Mars. And the reason it's important to distinguish between the two is that it's harder to go from Mars to Earth than it is to go from Mars. Sorry, it's harder to go from Earth to Mars than it is to go from Mars to Earth, because Earth is a bigger planet, closer to the sun. But we still think that there could be rocks on Mars that came from Earth. So when you go to Mars, look for them. Look for Earth rocks. We're not sure they're there, but we expect them to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. McKay. We've learned a lot today. We cannot wait to see you here at Sunny Miller, Cyrus Miller, especially me. I'm very interested in the work you have done, and I have lots of questions to ask you.
Great. Wonderful. Guys, that's in 2 weeks, right?
Yes, 2 weeks.
Great. Okay, well, good talking to everybody. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for all your questions.
Say thank you.
Say thank you. Bye, Dr. McKay.
Bye.